Good morning, a very warm welcome to all of you who are attending this morning's session. My name is Lisa Deisel. I'm from the UNISA Directorate for Counseling and Career Development. And this morning we are welcoming back Mr. Ronnie Mulaudzi, who will be chatting to us about how we can use graduate recruitment fees to help us manage our careers more effectively. I'm going to hand over to one of my colleagues, Mrs. Mandu Makanya. She will be welcoming us to the session and also introducing our speaker. Throughout the session, please remember to use the Q&A to post your questions. We will have time for engagement after the session. Thank you, Mandu.
Good morning, everyone. It gives me pleasure to once again welcome our guest speaker for the day. He is a well-rounded business executive with wide-ranging skills. He has a passion for sharing knowledge and empowering others, especially youth. He also carries a wealth of knowledge from his experience working in various roles in the public sector and the corporate world. I must say that our speaker is a man of many talents. He is also a recording gospel artist who also is a talk show host where he discusses various topics with musicians. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me pleasure to welcome for the second time on UNISA virtual platform, Mr. Ronnie Mulaudzi. Over to you, Lisa. Talents. He is also a gospel artist.
Thank you, Mandu. Ronnie, thank you. Very welcome to you again. I'm just going to project your presentation and then you're welcome to start. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go on full. Okay, I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes.
All right. So good morning once more, and thank you very much for the invitation to you, Mrs. Makanya, Lisa, and the team. Becky, thank you so much for having me again. Today we're talking about a topic that I think is quite important. From the previous session, it became very clear that this would be naturally the next topic that we deal with, given that it is actually graduate recruitment season and the career fairs are starting to happen. And we're going to talk about how those can be used as a tool towards successful career development for you as a person. If you're in final year, this is a great time to consider maybe this kind of information and how you then move forward in terms of starting the job search process, because it takes a while, especially in the current job market where unemployment is at its all-time high in the country. So I'm hoping that this is going to be a lot more practical session than it is theory. So I'm going to share for a short while, and I would love to get all your questions and we can have a Q&A and answer as many questions as possible. Perhaps also to mention again that I am not a stranger to UNISA. I'm an alumni of UNISA. I did my master's, my MCOM in organizational and industrial psychology at UNISA, under the supervision of Professor Melinda Kutsia. And I did focus my topic, my dissertation on career development. And so this is one of the things that are really top of mind. And some of the info I'm going to share will be coming from my master's dissertation, as a matter of fact. So I think we'll continue then and just start out by defining or having an understanding of what graduate career fairs are. And I don't think maybe we want to take it for granted that everybody is aware, because even myself as a student back in 2006, when I was doing my final year, I also had no idea that there were such platforms that I could use to in fact get a head start into the world of work. And so I'll share a bit later about that. But essentially, graduate career fairs are hosted by a majority of the universities and other higher learning institutions, usually through the careers development units in the universities. And the idea is to connect students or those that are looking for employment that might be in the final year or maybe in post-grad with potential employers. And so COVID, of course, necessitated that some of those start to happen, virtually. As an example, the SAGIA Virtual Grad Expo is happening on the 4th and the 19th of August 2022. And so if you are keen to attend that, you should maybe get information from the careers unit. I'm sure they've got a link for you that you can apply there. But of course, because we couldn't do live events or face-to-face events, the likes of SAGIA then innovated and started the Virtual Grad Expo, which does the same thing as a face-to-face on-campus graduate career fair. And so I would encourage all of you to attend it. So SAGIA is essentially the South African Graduate Employers Association. It's the one umbrella body that hosts and houses most employers that run graduate development programs and that employ graduates directly from university with no work experience. So it's a great resource for you as a student. But also it's a great resource for employers for them to find high-performing, high-caliber talent from the various universities. So what you have there at a graduate fair is that as a student or as a job seeker, the opportunity to meet and to network with employer representatives. In my past life, as a learning and development manager, for the likes of Massmart and SAB. We used to do this every single year and go around the country, all the major universities and University of Technology campuses, speaking to students, having a booth there with our branding material and contact information. And so really a graduate fair is an opportunity for you to get to meet the employer in person. Instead of you cold calling a company and asking about vacancies or emailing, a company with no prior, context to them, a graduate fair gives you that opportunity to meet and to network with employer representatives, and you can talk to them. Some of them, in the olden day, or let me say pre-COVID, would have some really, big stands. You could go there, sit down, they'd give you the opportunity to ask any question that you've got. And in some instances also, they would have, for those students who were interested, have opportunity for you to apply for potential jobs right on site, and they would have computers and links for you to do that whilst they were there. Then they collect your information and keep it on hand until they start with the selection process. What it also does, as a student, it gives you a view of what job opportunities are available in various sectors in the market and how you can match your qualification or your skill set with what's available, especially at an entry level for graduates. In some cases, you would also get to experience some of the, potential employers' culture, because you'd get to interact with maybe 3 or 4 representatives. You'll get a sense of how they speak in that organization, how they value talent, what their values are, etc. But also for the employer, it is a branding opportunity, because some employers sometimes don't have as much reach, or they don't do big adverts on billboards and on television, above the line and below the line, and so it's part of their own brand as an employer, positioning themselves as an employer of choice for you as a potential job seeker. So it's a dual as you can see, it's a dual process. It benefits you as a job seeker, but it also benefits the employer as a potential employer of the future for yourself. Now, we said this could be used as a platform or a way or a tool to further your career development. And so career development, really, we can define it just as the support that an organization provides an employee professional growth, especially to employees' movements to a new role or a project within the organization. And this support often includes coaching, mentoring, skills development, networking, I've put them in bold there, and career pathing. And so career development doesn't only work for those that are inside the organization, but it also works for those that would like to come into the organization, which is why the career fairs happen, so that networking can happen, and that career pathing in most instances would start at the lowest level of a role in the company to the highest level. And so when the company maps out a career and the ladders or the steps that one would have to climb, you might find that if, as an example, you're training to become an accountant, CA route, they'll say, okay, the career path for a CA at the company is that they start with their articles, they do that for 2 years. After 2 years, they then get appointed. Or, well, of course, they'll have to pass their board exams and all of those other requirements from the professional body. And once all of those requirements are met, then they can get employed into a full-time professional role. And usually at an assistant manager level. From there, then the path of the career path kind of works itself out all the way up the management and professional ranks in the organization. And so I thought, let me talk about, graduate development programs, because for a good part of my career, that's something that I did quite extensively. And a lot of companies offer those kind of programs, which are really opportunities for graduates with no experience to enter into entry-level corporate jobs, supported usually by a variety of training opportunities for for a 12-month period or for 24 months period, depending on what the company is training for. In most cases, in a grad program, most recruits will get absorbed into a permanent role, and sometimes into management trainee programs after that, which are going to be for fast-tracking them into leadership roles in the organization. And so in a lot of cases, I've seen it when you interview graduates for roles, many graduates, if you ask them, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Most graduates will say, I would like to be in a management position in 5 years' time. It's not impossible, but it is not guaranteed either, because usually the first 5 years of your career, you're still learning. And it's best, to do that in a formalized, structured program. And so that's why, graduate development programs are so important as part of what companies do when they come on campus. In most instances, when companies come on campus to do the graduate or participate in the graduate fair or do it online, it is because they've got a particular skill set they're looking for, a particular qualification or area of study they're looking for, a particular type of student or graduate they're looking for, and they've got a need in the organization to fulfill or to meet at different levels, sometimes at entry level, sometimes at middle management level, sometimes at slightly professional level. So I would encourage you to pursue and look out for graduate development programs in the various sectors offered by companies that usually come on campus to do these career fairs, or even on the virtual platforms. Usually you'd apply through a link online and submit your information there. And one of the other things that graduate programs do is address scarce skills that employers are struggling to find in the job market. And so you'd find that usually some of these roles are also differently priced, if I can put it that way, as opposed to other entry-level jobs in the organization, because the skills are so scarce to find that it makes them premium. And you might find that companies also compete, especially the skills in the fields of areas of study that are in high demand. You'll find that these often command really high salaries, and so at entry level already. And so companies will put in a lot of effort to find the right graduates to fill those roles. And I think I spoke about mission critical roles in organizations. So most companies will have their core operations or their core service that they provide, in order to generate revenue. And those kind of roles that are involved directly in the company's core business, we call them mission critical roles. And usually those roles are the ones that would find themselves in a graduate development program, which is really geared towards training graduates and fast tracking them into leadership, so that the company has got a great succession plan at the right depth and also with the right breadth of skill set that is required. So typically, what is the kind of process you're likely going to embark on as a graduate recruit or a graduate trainee in a company? You'd usually submit an online CV and a profile, and then from there it goes to shortlisting or screening. Sometimes companies like to do, before they do the interview, some online baseline psychometric assessments. Usually they'll have personality assessment, depending on the role, ability tests such as numerical or verbal skills and technical tests. Some of the roles would require for you to do a technical assessment for the company to have a general sense of how fair or how strong you are technically for that particular industry and for that particular role that you're applying for. In other cases, you might do simulations. These are in baskets, role plays. So where they call you in to almost do like a written test, especially for those for the management trainee roles. So they want to see your potential, as a graduate into leadership, into supervisory level type of positions. And so they might want to do a simulation with you and see how you respond to that. Usually it's timed. And so you won't have all the time in the world, to go to problem solve essentially, because I want to see how you solve for problems and how you prioritize issues, etc., etc. And we'll speak about that a bit later as well. And then after that, once they've got that information, then they do the first interview to, of course, validate everything else that they've done in step 1, 2, and 3. And if you are still seen as a good fit for the role, good fit for the culture, fit for purpose, they'll move you then to the final interview, at which point usually then they verify qualifications, do a character reference, do criminal and credit checks where it's relevant. And then from there it's a job offer, and then you go through an induction process for that company. And so this we spoke about in the last session as well, and it remains relevant in this conversation as well. Because the characteristics of the 21st century world of work are such that, employability, which I will define for you just now, is really at the center of what differentiates you from other candidates. Remember that you are not, unemployment is very high. Sometimes even the field of study that you might have gone into might not be unique, competition is very high to enter into employment, both for graduates and professionals. I'll give you an example. So as an example, people that have studied finance, accounting, and those types of fields, for a while now have started to compete with people that have studied engineering, as an example, because what really the companies are looking for sometimes, let's say in financial services, is problem-solving skills, strong numerical skills, strong logical thinking, etc. So you can get it either from an accountant or from an engineer, as an example. So then you find that careers are not one-dimensional anymore. And so competition for you as an accountant or as a CASA candidate is a lot more higher, and you're competing with someone that didn't even do that whole, full training and registered with SAICA or SAIPA or SEMA or whichever professional body you register with. And so employability becomes very, very important, and the issue of graduate skills and attributes is important. We know that the knowledge economy is driven by graduate skills and attributes, and that's what we really have right now. Legislation, of course, is still important because it's a driver mostly of a lot of those skills development programs that you'll find, learnerships, at all different levels, that companies offer, graduate programs, internship programs, a lot of that driven by legislation, BEE, employment equity, and the likes. And of course, we know the economy is volatile. Interest rates just went up 7.4%. We all know that. It means that you afford less with what you make. And also it means that organizations are under pressure to perform at a much higher rate, than they did previous years. And of course, the cost of production increases, etc. The cycle. So we live in a volatile economy, and of course, pandemics also contributing to those, and these are like extraneous factors that are affecting our economy, and the high unemployment rate, which we spoke about. And so the nature of careers really has changed. And so when you engage with a recruiter or when you are on those virtual graduate fair platforms, what you should understand is that the psychological contract has changed between employer and employees. And so you've got a lot of discrepancy between what the old traditional workplace used to be and what it looks like now in the 21st century workplace. It's even more pronounced now that we are using a lot more technology practically to do work and to retain productivity of workers, which is why it's so important for all of you to consider attending a virtual graduate fair that could be happening on any of the platforms as we spoke. And you'll find that we are having to rethink some positions in companies. Some have become redundant and no longer relevant. And so how do you reskill and upskill post-COVID era? Because that's where we are right now. And so I wanted to talk about employability because I said it's central to this discussion. And what it is that the extent to which you as an individual, as a graduate trainee who's interacting with a company or a potential employer, to what extent do you as an individual are you able to obtain and retain employment by evaluating first your own set of skills and abilities in relation to how they perceive how you perceive an organization and how that organization may respond to you as an individual with your own particular characteristics and attributes. And so it talks to what is so special and so different about you that this organization should consider you when there are 1,000 graduates in the same field that you are in. And so employability doesn't only talk to what you're qualified in or what you're able to do, but also talks about your own self-perception of your own skills and attributes. So if you have a mindset that says, based on my personality, based on my ability to speak, based on my ability to analyze, my ability to organize, my ability to report, my ability to write, I know that I'm going to be able to get employment and I'm going to retain that employment. And I know that when an organization looks at my skill set and at my CV, that they are going to find me different. They're going to find me a lot more attractive than my peers who are competing with me for the same role in the organization. So that is the whole issue of employability. How employable are you? right now, so that even in your conversation with a potential recruiter, if they ask you the question of, okay, we've only got 3 spaces or 3 spots in our program for graduates, and we're looking for people with a skill set X, what really makes you, what's going to make you stand out? What's going to make you become part of those 3? So you need to be able to answer that question yourself first. So that is not the job of the organization to answer for you. So when you appear before a recruiter or a potential employer, you need to be able to tell them, these are the reasons why you cannot afford not to have me in your organization. And so you can imagine there are a number of levels to that, because it talks to how self-confident are you, how self-assured are you, and maybe if you need to do some work also internally, I'm sure the careers unit would have programs and such as self-assertiveness, personal mastery, all of those things, emotional intelligence, all of those become tools. They become the things that you offer when you engage with a potential employer. So that is very, very, very important and fundamental. And I think in all the conversations we're going to be having, in this series of these online sessions, this issue is going to be always important. And then we talk about graduate skills and attributes, which are generic transferable skills and attributes which contribute to your employability and work readiness as an individual. So essentially the two working in tandem, these two concepts, so as I said, most companies will run some kind of a learnership, internship, graduate development program, and some of these are legislated, and so they have to do them. So what you need to ask yourself when you are studying and when you are engaging on campus, or when you're engaging with your institution of higher learning, is, apart from the degree and the certificate I'm going to get, what else am I going to be able to offer an employer? Because my peers are also going to offer the same thing. And that's where graduate skills and attributes come in. So very, very important. What are employers looking for in graduates? They're looking for scholarship, global moral citizenship behavior, lifelong learning attributes. And you can see all of these things are intertwined, and they contribute to your graduateness as well as your employability. We spoke about problem solving and decision-making skills. When they do psychometric assessments, those are some of the competencies they're going to be assessing for. Can this person solve for a problem? Is this person innovative? Can this person provide real practical business solutions? Because all of us at university, we can learn. When you come out of university, we demonstrate that we've got a potential to learn, but can we apply those skills? Analytical thinking, interactive skills. Some people are very, very intelligent and very smart, but you find that they've got low EQ, which is emotional quotient. Essentially, how do they interact with others around them? And you might find that your interaction with an employer, either during a virtual graduate fair or a physical one, might be the one value or the one thing that actually sells you to that employer. Your professional, your outlook, how you engage with them, and how you present yourself. Very, very important. Presenting and applying information. I can't emphasize that enough. Usually you'd find that there are very intelligent people, very smart people who do not show up very well, either at an interview, either at a graduate career fair when they're interacting with a potential employer, but also they just don't know how to put together information in a way that is coherent, comprehensible, and applying your analytical skills, applying your problem-solving skills, and all of those things to make sure that you have got a strong presence when you appear. Any potential employer wants to have you in their organization. And of course, the issue of lifelong learning, I believe it's also UNISA's. It's been UNISA's tagline for a very long time. because learning never really stops. So you can have your qualification, you can have your certificate. You need to continuously upskill yourself, look at the environment and see what's changing, and make sure that should anything happen in the environment, should they say we are retrenching in a company, and you're still there, in that learning program, you are able to, produce other generic competencies, other generic skills that can easily be transportable to a different job within the organization. So you will see that this speaks directly also to the previous slide where we were talking about the traditional workplace versus the new world of work, where your progression career-wise, it's not going to go up vertically like it did for our parents. You might need to do some side moves, some lateral moves in order for you to build a more comprehensive set of skills and attributes. And so how do companies, or what strategies do companies employ to do talent acquisition? Mostly in-house careers portals where you load your CV on their company website, but also online job boards like LinkedIn, PNet, Career Junction. We spoke about these last time. Please make sure that you've got a professional LinkedIn profile, which is not the same as your Facebook account. On Facebook, you can have a profile picture, with your dog and, all those kind of things. On LinkedIn, it has to be professional. Make sure you get someone that can take a proper picture of you in formal wear so that, when you appear on those job boards or you even apply to an employer or make an inquiry on LinkedIn to an employer, that you look and appear professional. And so you'll see graduate fairs also part of the talent acquisition strategies that companies would use to reach out to talent. Potentially in the workplace, you're going to enter, at the entry level, as we've discussed. But this is an example, as you can see there, of how you could climb that corporate ladder. But usually entry level, these are learnerships, internships, apprenticeships, graduate development programs. At a more junior to middle level, you probably need like 1 to 2 years of experience in a role or in the sector. For the middle to senior levels, 3 to 8 years experience. Executive level, of course, 10 plus years in leadership. And so all of these are driven by where you are in your career and what you've got to offer, all the things that we've discussed before that. And so you'll see at entry level, you must be willing to learn. Whatever it is that you get given, you do it, and you do it with excellence. And I'm going to talk about that because I thought, as a way to maybe round up the conversation, I'll speak a little bit about my own personal experience of graduate fairs and how they contributed to my development as a professional. I've been working for 15 years now, since I graduated in 2006. And so I studied Wits. I did a Bachelor of Science degree at junior level, and then post-grad I did my master's, both my honors and my master's in industrial organizational psychology. I must be honest, I wasn't even aware, I think, in 2006 that there was a whole career expo happening on campus. And so I got invited by a friend, and they were like, no, let's go check out what's happening, Hall 27 on campus. There are companies there, talking to students. So I went, and of course it was busy. It was, you couldn't really make heads of tails of what is going on and that kind of a thing. But now, at least, if, you find an event like that happening and seek them out, by the way, you would know what is what's happening, what's expected, and how you should interact with the employer there. So as I was walking around, between the different booths and the different stands, of the different employers, one of the representatives from PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers at that time, invited me. She saw me wandering kind of in the passage, and she invited me to come to their stand, asked me if I'd known PwC. I had no idea, of course, what the company was. because I didn't study, of course, in that field. So it was the last company I thought could employ a graduate like me, essentially. And so this is why I was saying earlier on as well that graduate fairs are also an opportunity for companies to brand themselves and to reach a wider audience and a wider group of potential graduates that they can recruit. And so there I was. I thought, okay, PwC, that's interesting. I thought, you guys are doing, you employ accountants only and, tax practitioners. And she wanted to explain that, no, we've actually got a grad program that we are running for advisory services. It was their pilot program at that time, the first time they'd done that for advisory services. Now, advisory services is that part of the business that that provides professional services to a variety of companies on a variety of subjects. Some of them corporate finance advisory, HR advisory, risk advisory, IT advisory, etc. And so that was the division in PwC that was recruiting, and they only had 3 spots available. And I filled in a form. In those days, it was literally a manual form that I filled in. So I sat in the corner, filled in the form very neatly, and then I submitted it. And I thought to myself, I mean, there's so many students here who've done the same thing. What are the chances, the likelihood that someone is going to, spot my application? And it's a manual application. It's not like you can, follow it up in any way like we do now with online applications. And I did that with a few other companies as well. I think it was PwC, it was Unilever that also had an interest in me. And lo and behold, I got a call from PwC. And it was the only company that reverted to me. And so you can imagine that it's almost like throwing a needle in the haystack and hoping that something happens, because the odds are just against you in that scenario. And so that's how I got into my first job at PwC. And very interesting, when I got to induction on the first day, one of the HR officers there said, "Oh, you are the guy with the neat handwriting." I was shocked. So essentially, as they were going through, she told me the story as they were going through the applications, one by one. Then they get to mine and they were like, "Wow, this application is so neatly filled in." That's literally how my application stood out. Then, of course, they read, and I had a couple of, campus achievements, leadership roles that I held with different student clubs and societies, etc. And that's really how I walked into my first job at PwC as a junior intern consultant. From there, moved on to the Department of International Relations, SA Breweries, SHL, Walmart, and now currently I'm at Sapimoto Group Holdings. And 15 years later, and my role, I'm a chief operations officer in an investment holding company. So and again, I would like to emphasize this point. I studied a BSc, Bachelor of Science. Postgrad did BA Honors in Industrial Organizational Psychology, MCOM in the same field. Did a whole, tenure of about 9 years in human resources, starting out in consulting, going to a specialist role, generalizing in HR, and then coming back full circle and working in the financial services sector in investments. And I'm not an accountant, I'm not a CA or a CIMA or anything, but because I developed a set of graduate skills and attributes over time, intentionally, so I honed my business acumen, did a number of programs in finance, certificates in finance, and so when a role came up, in an area where I never thought I would be relevant, there I was, and so I just wanted to, share this personal experience, because really, I don't know if I had not gone that day to that career fair, if I would, be where I am today. And so I would like to encourage you on that basis as well, that it is practical as that. Just the last slide, I think, is that, of course, we are in the post-COVID era. A lot of things happen online. We spoke about this in the previous session. So here, the one thing I just want to highlight is, should an employer get back to you and say, we'd like to interview you virtually, please make sure that you treat that as a formal interaction with that potential employer. Make sure that you are presentable, well-dressed, you're not moving around with your phone and your camera and everything, because they will ask you, because they want to, see what you look like. They want to see how you present before they call you in, maybe for a follow-up interview in person. And so make sure that you're in a professional environment, it's quiet, that you've got a good background, that your screen works and you've got data, you've got a stable Wi-Fi connection and all of those things. And prepare for that virtual interaction as if it is, a formal interaction. You will note that most companies are using, Microsoft Teams. We are on Teams right now, Zoom, Google Meet, and so any of these can be used for that interaction. And so online etiquette is absolutely essential. Thank you very much. I think that's all I had to share with you today. I will be very glad and happy to take any questions, any comments, and then we can take it from there.
Ronnie, thank you very much. We've had a couple of questions on the Q&A, so could I share those with you?
Yes, most definitely.
Okay. Would you want to share your camera with us?
Sure.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Tandile asked, can your age work against you when applying for graduate programs at such fairs, because one cannot apply for jobs in a field of study without suitable or proven work experience? Some of us graduating are not necessarily spring chickens, but still have enough drive to succeed. So that's from Tandile.
Okay, now that's a great question, Tandile. And there is no, right answer for this one. What I would say, based on my experience, is that, like I've said, at the graduate fairs, you'll find that employers are solving for different problems. And maybe your question also links to a question that we normally have with graduates. Should I do my undergrad degree and look for a job, or should I do postgrad and then look for a job? When should I do my master's? Because of course, the longer you study, the older you become, isn't it? So, and so, this is not, like cast in stone, but typically I would advise someone to do undergrad, and if you can get into the workplace through a learnership or a graduate program, do that first, and so that you have some work experience whilst you do postgraduate studies. If work doesn't come, it's important, I think, then for you to continue studying. But I think first prize in terms of career development and managing kind of age as well, although age is not a factor that should be used to discriminate against you in these kind of processes. And so my advice would be, if you feel that maybe you've done postgrad and master's and PhD and you're too old, probably you might need to find or use a different strategy to get into the workplace. As an example, you might need to register your CV with a headhunter or a recruitment agency, because they're the ones who would then get briefed by different companies in your field of study, and in that case, they know that they're employing someone slightly more mature than an entry-level graduate. But in instances where it is legislated kind of programs like learnerships, as an example, the cutoff age is 35. You're still considered youth, at 35. So I don't think that should be a big hindrance at all, if I can put it that way. I hope that's answered Tandiwe's question.
Yeah, so what I hear you saying, Ronnie, is that it's important to consider that graduate career fairs are not the only way that one could go about, looking for opportunities. Okay, then we've got somebody who also, just to add on to Tandile's question, would my work experience work against me? I'm currently changing career paths and I'm in my final year of studies. I think that question also links to something that Paul asked. Do you have any advice for how to position yourself to recruiters when you already have a lot of work experience and you are now changing your career direction?
Yeah, so that's also another important question. So I think the question also would be, how much work experience are we talking about? Work experience should not disadvantage you in any way. But as I've said, it depends also what the company is trying to solve for in terms of their internal capability or human capital requirements. And so if you've got some experience, we do like graduates that come with some experience, although it might not be a prerequisite for a graduate program. So usually those that have got prior experience, I would encourage you then to maybe pursue graduate programs that companies are using to address a supervisory junior management capacity issue. So there, your work experience would definitely stand you in good stead, because there you would already have exposure to how companies and organizations work, possibly have worked in a team, possibly have led a team, and you've got that exposure. So I would say that's one of the ways. But the other way, like I said, depending on which recruitment strategy the company is using, you could also approach headhunters and submit your CV there. LinkedIn is a very good resource. And that's why I said how you appear on LinkedIn is important. So make sure that your LinkedIn profile is up to date. Even the guys at Zakia will tell you the same thing. It's up to date. If you can get, let's say maybe your professor, your supervisor for your postgrad, or your employer, whether you worked at a restaurant as a waiter or whatever the case is, or you were in a more formal job, ask them to put a recommendation for you on LinkedIn. So you can request that, and then they write up and they say, this is our experience of this person. We would recommend them, for any kind of employment that's related to their field. So all of those can be options that can work for you. I hope that answers that question.
Thank you, Ronnie. Kanisile asks, how can I best prepare for conversations at a graduate fair?
Yes, you must be prepared, like I said. One of the things you can do is, so it depends on your field of study. So I think usually there is a publication that goes out, or a pamphlet that lists all the employers that are coming to campus or that are going to be on the virtual platform when you register. And so what will stand you in good stead is to be very well targeted and strategic about how you navigate that space. Do your research. So if you're in the field of accounting, as an example, or if you're in the field of HR, you'd know that HR fits into most companies, essentially. So you don't want to, appear like you don't know what you want. And so if you're in a field that is broad and generic like HR, I think decide for yourself which sectors are the most attractive for you. Remember, it's part of your own assessment of your employability. So you must say, I'm a graduate that can really enter or that can find a role or an opportunity in a variety of sectors. I'm not limited by my field of study because my qualification or my area of study really fits into most companies. But now, how do I shortlist the kind of employees I'd like to engage when I'm on a graduate careers fair platform? And so I think do your shortlist, maybe let's say 5 sectors, and say in those sectors you're looking at the pamphlet that would have been published and see which employers are coming there. Go on their website, look at what they do, look at how they treat people. Usually they would have a careers portal. Most companies have a careers portal on their website where they'll tell you about their values, their culture, development of employees in that environment, etc., etc. And so if you're an accounting student, of course, your options, because you might need to do articles, we know the accounting firms, right? And so that your shortlist already is kind of predetermined in a way. So I think thinking about how you engage in potential employees at a career fair should not be don't go through my experience, because I have no idea, So we're doing this session because we're trying to empower you with information of how to go about it. So the most I think I can say annoying thing that a graduate recruiter can experience is a student who comes to their stand or who appears there, and the first thing they do is ask you, so who are you? What are you looking for? How much money can I get from you? Because there are students who actually do that with employers. Usually, with those kind of students, all you do is just give them the pamphlet and say, go and read on our website. So you want a student who's going to come with some base knowledge about your company. Oh, I see that you are representing Standard Bank, sort of to mention the name, or such and such employer. I do see that you have a number of programs that you have run in the past. Which one are you recruiting for today? That shows the recruiter that someone has done their homework and that they've got an interest in the company more than just finding a job and asking how much it's going to pay them. I think that's what I can say on that one, Lisa.
Thank you, Ronnie. This looks like a kind of general career question, but also maybe in your opinion. Josie asks, good morning, what is a reasonable time to remain at a company before moving to another?
So yeah, wearing my HR practitioner hat now, I would say that generally the principles around changing, and I think I forgot to respond to the issue around changing careers. I'll come back to it as well. Just make a note. How do you do a career change? But in terms of movements between employers, usually, when we review applicants for a particular role, if we see that you are moving around a lot, that will concern us, especially if there are no substantive reasons why you're moving. And moving for a better paying job is not usually a good enough reason sometimes, because what happens then is that you're in a company, you're there for a year, and then someone else entices you with 500 rands more, you go. But in that year, you are still really getting to know the job. So usually how it works, I think in a career, is that the first 3 months in a job, all you're doing is learning how the company works, their policies, systems, processes, learning who is who in leadership, learning how the values of the company work, how you grow, what programs are available in the company. Usually that's the first 3 months or 90 days that you'd spend in the company doing. And in the next 6 months, again, you are starting to apply what you've learned in the company and starting to contribute and add value as an employee. And then after a year, you have not really developed any kind of depth in your area of in your field of work, if we're to be honest, because what we look for then when you move on to the next job is you being able to demonstrate your abilities or demonstrate your skills that you have acquired in a job or in a role or in a company. Usually hopping from one employer to the next every year doesn't help you because you're starting from scratch the whole time, and then you find that in your field of study then you've not developed enough depth. You can find that, you know, for 5 years you're doing that and hopping from one job to the next. I would strongly encourage, if you found yourself in a good company, in the field of study that you desired, that's aligned with the qualifications, try as much as you can to stay in that organization for at least 2 to 3 years, because in that 3 years you're going to be able to come out with a portfolio of evidence that says, yes, I was a junior accountant, I'm able to do a trial balance, I was able to lead an audit or at least be part of the contributors to an audit. I know how that whole cycle works. I know how to do support managers when they do their budgets. I know how to capture that, etc., etc. I've reported into a financial controller, financial manager, all of those things. So when you come out of that job or that role, and you look a lot more attractive to a new employer, as opposed to you jumping from one to the other without really gathering substantive knowledge, substantive skills, depth, because that's what really the next employee is interested in. They want to know, when we employ you now, what value are you going to be able to contribute in the first 90 days that you come into this company, and that's how I think you could look. You could look at your career development in that way. Of course, some of the movements can be explained, and it's not your fault. If you get retrenched, as an example, it's not your fault, and a lot of that is happening now, or some other event that is involuntary on your part. We can't blame you for those things. So we look at that comprehensively, but too many movements do create a bit of they do raise a bit of a red flag for recruiters and employers. I wanted to just maybe touch on what if I am considering a career change. It goes back to what we were talking about around employability and graduate skills and attributes. You can only do a career change comfortably if you have developed the set of skills required in the next one. And if you are comfortable that you've got enough in your kitty of competencies and skills and knowledge to apply in a different career. But you can't expect, which example can I use? So you can't expect, let's say you're an engineer, and you've been an engineer for 5 years or 7 years, and you want now to move to go into corporate finance in a bank, because you could do it because you've got those skills. But if you've never really created the opportunities or the learning, the learning map for yourself to get there, it's going to be very difficult for you to convince an employer, for in a different sector, in a different role, to consider you. So if you're in a job now and you feel you want to do a career change, ask yourself the question, what kind of career change am I making? How big is the jump between what I know now, my qualifications now, my skill set now, and what I'm going to be required to know in the next career? And so if you can answer that question and close that gap, then you are ready to do a career change. I think we can leave it at that for now, Lisa.
Thank you, Ronnie. Sibongile asks, is it okay to follow up with recruiters after the careers fair? And maybe just as I was reading a question, I was wondering, what would be some of the ways that you would recommend, or how would one follow up? What could one's strategy be in terms of the follow up with a recruiter after attending, for example, the graduate expo?
Yes, so usually companies will have, let me say, a defined timeline within which they would like to close out, a particular vacancy. So if you attended maybe a career fair and it's for a graduate development program that is starting in January next year, I think give them enough time to review all the CVs, because usually, as an example, I would get about 3,000 plus applications across a number of areas of the businesses that I was working in. And so I think, first of all, consider that they have thousands and thousands of applications to go through. Most employers use online, let me say, sifting methods. And so make sure that when you apply, that you've applied with the right keywords, so that when they do that filtering, they get to your CV quicker. But generally, if it's for a grad development program or some other entry-level position, give them at least 3 months to go through all the CVs, especially if that role is going to start next year. You could ask them, at the fair, when do you want to fill this role, or when do you see this role starting, and they'll give you a timeline. I think based on the timeline they give you, give them about 3 months or so for them to get back to you. But you don't want to, I think maybe after 60 days, you could maybe follow up with an email and say, I met you at the career fair and I've applied. I just wanted to check, how far in the process you are in filling this role, and leave it at that. But usually they've got a lot that they're dealing with. So I think 2 to 3 months is a good time before you start chasing after the recruiters.
Thank you, Ronnie. Laura asks, do I need to have my CV ready when I attend the Grad Expo? So in general, what kind of documentation, or what do people need to think about as they are preparing to attend such an event?
Usually at the grad fairs, the physical one, especially, you wouldn't be expected to have a CV with you, but they will direct you to their online application platform or their careers portal, usually. So you might not need to have a CV, especially now also because the grad fairs are happening virtually online. So you wouldn't be expected to have a CV right on hand. But I think once you've understood what they're looking for and how the application process works for that particular employer, then you'll be redirected to the right place where you can submit your CV.
Sorry for that moment of silence. Thank you very much, Ronnie. Those are all the questions that have been posted. I think I just want to make a few announcements, and I'm also going to give you an opportunity if you've got any final comments, Ronnie. But while we are doing that, let's also encourage those who are attending to post any other additional questions that they would want to ask. So from your side, do you have any parting wisdom that you can share with us?
No, I think we've shared quite a bit. What I would encourage, all those that are maybe listening online is that sometimes, I think they always say, preparation, when preparation meets opportunity, that's when magic happens. It's not luck. So I would say that please make sure that you are prepared when you go to the fairs, that you've done your research, and that when you meet potential employers, they'll consider you to be standing out and that your employability will be rated high. That's all I can say for now, and all the best, all the best.
Ronnie, thank you very much. I'm just going to share my camera. I just want to make just some announcements. On the Q&A, I've posted a link for you to register for the Virtual Grad Expo that UNISA is hosting with the South African Graduate Employers Association. So it's a fully online event. There will be lots of companies who would want to share the opportunities that they've got available with you. You will have an opportunity also to engage with the recruiters that will be on the platform. So that's on the 4th and the 19th of August. And as I've said, I've posted a link to that event on the Q&A. So please go and register that you would want to attend and prepare, as Ronnie suggested, by doing research about the companies. Also just thinking about yourself and, you know, what kind of opportunities you are looking for. Then also we will be having another one of these sessions tomorrow. Chantal Botha is joining us again, and she will be talking about the employment or the recruitment process and preparing your CV in the most optimal way.